Okay, I think we're streaming now.
Yeah,
Hey there, Nicolette. How are you going today?
fantastic. How are you, Paul?
Oh, I'm fantastic. I'm back into a new year. so
Absolutely. Ready to
yeah,
go.
yeah, we're all ready to go. And yeah, I'm actually going on holidays next week. Anyway, so I've got Nicolette from Simply the Best Life back. And I'm really excited because today she's going to be speaking about emotional alchemy, right? She's going to be talking about breaking through limiting beliefs to become the true self. Does that sound about correct?
Absolutely.
Yeah. All right, okay. So, really, what we're going to be talking about is understanding the connection between energy and everything. And, that's your thing, your thoughts, your feelings, your behavior, just everything. So, why don't you take us away?
Great. Thanks, Paul. And first of all, thank you again for the opportunity to be in your company and be having this conversation together. Exciting.
Sure
So,
is.
yes, um, wanted to start with energies. Quite often, it's a word that a lot of people go like, "Well, what is it?" Because I don't understand it. And what we tend to do is that we wanted to actually understand it in our mind. We want to rationalize it. We want to understand what things mean. I need to know how is what I hear so often from my clients. They say, I need to know how I do this or how this works. And that's very, very normal because that's what we've been taught to do. And that's what we've been conditioned to do. We need to do certain things in a certain way because that's how it's done. At least that's what they say it is how to be done. And it is quite often when you start not thinking, and a lot of people say always, like, my head is so full, but it's just so busy, and then I just want to be quiet, and I can't just get my mind quiet. It's because we're thinking about things. And if you wanted to go to actually feel about things and coming more from like the heart, that's a whole different way of feeling and acting because you're actually not thinking about it. And that's where the word comes from, overthinking as well. We're too busy in our minds overthinking answers and solutions and the how instead of actually understanding like how do I actually feel. So what we think is actually connected as well. It's all connected. Our whole body, mind, and spirit connection is as we spoke about that last time. It is connected, but people don't understand how that works. It's actually all the bits of information we get to us, and that is me talking now. It's reading a newspaper. It's watching the news. It's listening to friends. It's looking at Facebook. All the information you gather, there's a certain thing and a certain thought you have about it. And it's not about what's right or wrong, but that is what you have. And I will have different thoughts about what I read, and maybe you read exactly the same thing and you have a whole different perception of it. And your thoughts are completely different than mine, but we still read the same thing. So we get the same information, but we just process it differently. And there's certain things when I read that one sentence, I might feel really happy with that because it gives me that happy feel to it. And I feel it in my heart and I'm like, oh, this feels really good. While on the other hand, maybe you read the same line and you think, oh God, that is terrible. And you go like, oh, that makes me really sad. So people just interpret information differently. They react differently to it, they feel different. And that is also what is different for every single person. It all has to do with what has happened in the past. If you have a certain reaction or an emotion by an event, because something similar might have happened to you in the past, or somebody might have said something about to you, and it might be your parents, it might be your colleagues, it might be friends. So how we then react is what kind of energy we actually bring out to it. So what I said before, you might be feeling really sad. So you might go, oh, I feel really sad. And you kind of go a bit more into yourself and you're like, oh, you might start to cry. So the expression of how you feel and what kind of different energy you bring out is different. Because I was actually really happy. So I'm actually standing up and I start to smile instead of to cry. So that whole emotion is completely different, and the energy you actually create is so different. Have you ever
Yeah,
had the feeling and that energy that you walk into a room full with people and you walk in, you don't really know a lot of people, but you walk in and you go like, whoa, I'm just about to hit a wall when I will open that door. What's going on? Everybody's just like, you can just kind of cut a knife through the air because
yeah.
everybody's really sad or everybody's really depressed and then in a lower vibration and a lower energy. Or you walk into a room that everybody's chatting and having a good time and laughing, you start to smile straight away. There's no way you can't help you start smiling because the whole energy is different.
You can definitely feel when you walk into a room. You can definitely feel the energy of the. Not everybody, but when you become attuned to it, you can definitely feel the energy of the room. And not only that, sometimes when somebody walks into the room, they can change the whole energy of that room as well.
Absolutely. And it is how we deal with that ourselves. And if we haven't dealt with our own energy and then we don't know how we need to deal with our energy and our energy is stuck anywhere in our body, that's when we create aches and pains. And I always call it dis-ease. It's not a disease, it's a dis-ease because the energy is stuck wherever that is. And whatever the reason is, it can be we just said before, it can be a limited belief, it can be something somebody said to you. So this is what your perception and you think that's true.
It's,
But is
it's,
it
inter-
really?
it's interesting you're talking about disease because now I'm currently reading the book, The Abraham, whatever it's called, right? And what's it called? The
Uh,
Abraham.
yeah, it's Esther Hicks. He got so many
Is
different books, and
Yeah.
yeah,
And
Abraham.
and what he was talking about is um, when you're not allowing because the Abraham is really about Esther Hicks and his wife managed, or Esther's the wife anyway, Jerry and Esther. She
Yeah,
manages to go and she's talking to the spiritual realm. And in the spiritual realm, I'm glad I read the beginning of the book because it's not one person, it's all of the spiritual realm talking back to them. And they were saying that, now, firstly, when you were talking about feelings earlier on, they were saying that feelings is your guiding system as to whether you're allowing this greatness of the source or God, whatever you want to call it, into you. And when you're not feeling well is when you're not allowing this source or this greatness, goodness. So it's your system where you can actually feel whether or not you enhancing or expanding yourself or contracting yourself. And when you're in disease, that's when you are not allowing this natural flow to come through you. I think you've dropped out. This natural flow to flow through you. Yep. Okay.
sorry, it just frozen for a little bit to me at least. I don't know if it was for
Yeah.
everybody, but you were stuck a bit of stuck energy there.
It's funny we're talking about energy. And you did say that there's a storm on its way in 5 minutes, and that was 10 minutes ago.
Yeah,
So it's probably on its way. And
yeah.
we've had some
It's not
very
here
well.
yet. No.
It's not raining now, but we've had some heavy rain about 10 or 15 minutes ago. So in the ether out there, there's a lot of things happening. So it might conspire against us, or it might not. We'll soon find out. But what I was saying is that one of the reasons why people get sick is because they stay in this disease and they don't allow they're not listening to their natural flow.
Correct. And I think as well, I still remember the time that I was so stuck. I couldn't move forward. I couldn't do anything. And I was sitting in this circle and I did a lot of women's circle work at the time and still do. And the facilitator, she asked me and she said, "So how are you feeling?" And I was silent because I didn't know how I felt. And I got really upset and really angry. And I was like, "Oh, I don't know what I feel. I don't feel anything." And of course, I felt a lot. I was angry. I was frustrated. I had all those emotions going through me, but I couldn't express myself. I just didn't know how to describe in my head I didn't know how to describe my feelings. So it's also a process that you need to learn how to express them and how to deal with them, and what are the triggers, what makes you upset and what makes you happy. And that's quite often what we don't know. And that's the programming, what has happened to all of us. And that is all the limited beliefs we put on ourselves that we're not allowed to feel. And, you know, especially men, you're not allowed to cry. That is a sign of weakness. Women always cry. I remember my husband saying, "Oh, you cry again, you're always crying." But it was an expression. He doesn't do that anymore now because he's crying with me. But you know, it's
Oh,
just
that's funny.
it's not a sign of weakness. It's actually, I truly believe it's a sign of strength.
Uh,
But be able to express your emotions is you know, an art.
yeah.
But you need to get the tools on how to release that, so it doesn't stay stuck in your body. And um, you know, when you release it, you need to get it physically out of your body, because what you think and what you say and what you feel is what your behavior brings about, but also what you feel in your body. And I had it years and years ago. All of a sudden, I had like an agony pain on the right hand side of my body. And I'm like, what's going on? So at the end, I did go to a specialist, and all he said was like, well, it's your gallbladder and it needs to go out. I'm like, well, hold a minute. It came in naturally. Something is not right what is in my body, but my gallbladder is there for a reason. I'm not going to take that out. So I went on the whole healing journey and alternative way, if some people call that, and got rid of a lot of emotions. And it was a lot of resentment what had to do with my gallbladder. So releasing all that stuff and healing yourself, I've never had any problems with my gallbladder. Never ever. Never went back to the specialist, and he didn't get my business, that's for sure, because it's business for them, and that's fine. I appreciate that and respect that, but it was not for me.
Well,
And
let's
he said
go
there was no
down
other.
there. Let's go down that track a bit, because it's going to be a little bit controversial, but why not? Um, you know, uh, Ever since COVID, I've really lost faith in the medical profession. And I remember last year my mum got cancer, and she got it cut out. She had the chemo and all that. And we went out to a restaurant one day, and my mum and I were at the bar talking. And I said, look, and what was going on in her life at that time was my father was looking at selling the house and moving out down the coast about 2 hours away from the rest of the family. And my mum really didn't want to do this, but my father's such an overbearing man that she didn't feel like she had any control over that. And what ended up happening, fortunately for my mother, was that the property prices just plummeted. So the house just wasn't worth what it was anymore. So the thought of selling and moving down dissipated. And I turned around to my mum and I said, look, now that that's over, you can stop being angry, and hopefully you won't allow the cancer to continue to build within you. Because I think that cancer is anger held on for a long period of time.
And you touch on a point what I use within my work I'm doing is anger is the first biggest emotion you want to clear, and that is connected to your liver. And quite often I've done a lot of liver cleansing, and that was just incredible what the shifts were there, because that's the first emotion you really want to clear, because underneath there's so much more than just the anger. And when you get to the root cause of what it causes, you pull that all out as well, because it's not just the anger, it's frustration, it's so many other things that come out of it. But
So if
if you get
someone
it out
comes,
of your body, you get it out of your body.
so if someone comes to you and you can sense that they're angry and you want to work on their liver, what would you do? How would you go about doing that?
I always go through a lot of their personal history and all the details first, because you need to find out what is really the root cause. There's always one core wound what has been affecting you all through life. And there's many of them, but there's always one core one, whatever that might be. So by asking the right questions, you kind of find that out. And then you start working of releasing those limited beliefs we talked about before and releasing the big emotions. And the first big emotion is anger. And if they truly want to, like, the healing helps with releasing those big emotions, but it manifests still in your body. So you need to also cleanse your body, because you can keep on putting all the good food in, as I said. And people say, I'm going to eat really healthy. I'm not having sugar, and I'm gluten free, and I'm doing all these beautiful things. No processed food or whole foods. But you need to get the shit out first, because if that is not out, how can you put all the good stuff back in?
Mhm.
So start with a smaller, like, juice cleanse before you start doing a more invasive liver cleanse. But there's so many different ways. As you can see behind me, I got the singing bowls and the Tibetan bowls, and I got crystal bowls. Sound is, again, a different frequency and a different energy. So with sound, if you listen to really nice, upbeat, or really calming music, you're not going to be as angry as when you listen to this heartbeat, whatever. Um, I don't even know what kind of music it is because I don't listen to it. But
Rock and
it's
roll,
not even rock, but it's
heavy
yeah,
metal.
but really darker music and heavy metal and everything else as well,
Mm,
because that's
mm,
just really depressing.
yeah.
And you got these energy levels we talked about before. You can't be in anger and in shame and in guilt and be in love and joy. The
Mm,
frequency is different. So you can't be really sad and angry and really happy at the same time. There's just no way. You need to
mm.
clear negative emotions first before you get to, like, the positive emotions. So differently with
Absolutely.
sound healing, I do a lot of breath work. So moving the breath through your body at certain places just releases all that stuff that you want to get out of your body. And all the negative energy goes through as well with just simple breathing, or just listening to upbeat music or quiet music. That's just already, it's different frequencies what, you know, gets into your body and changes the vibration.
Yeah, so it's interesting that you're talking about vibrations because everything that I've been reading over the last month or so is actually talking about going into beyond the third dimension. And once you go beyond the third dimension, everything is about frequency and everything. There's really nothing solid there. And even like this table that this is on, or the microphone or the earphones, we feel it as solid, but really it's mostly energy, it's mostly space.
But we made out of 80% water, like the body is 80% water. That's one of the elements. And it's all the elements that come in it as well. What you say, energy and air and space. It feels like wood and it feels like rock and stone sometimes, but at the end of the day, we're just really nice and light. But you need to clear that and get it out of your body, not to feel stuck. So removing those limited beliefs, breaking through those old habits and patterns and conditioning what has been given to us and been put onto us. And it's just peeling off all those layers they've been put on you, what you need to feel and what you need to do. But that takes work, and we talked about that just before as well. It's you do need to do some inner work. If you want to get that energy flow, you need to get breakthrough what keeps you stuck to get that energy flowing again. And it is in your body, it is outside you as like your aura, your whole environment. And that's also how you raise the energy in general with other people. If you are upbeat and happy and you walk into that room and everybody's like, huh, you can change that whole room
Yeah.
in a positive way, but it can also be done in a negative way. So if you remove all your negative emotions and you have only, like, your really positive emotions coming out and that energy you present, that will change the world. Basically, you need to change that yourself.
Yeah.
But I said,
No,
you do need to do work, and quite often people don't want to do the work because it is scary. And what do I need to do, and how do I start? And that's very common. Where do I start? How do I start?
Yeah. Well, yeah. Let's assume somebody wants to start. What's your best advice for somebody who wants to simply live the best life? What's the best way for them to start?
I truly believe it's a journey without a destination. So enjoy the journey. Don't think it's a marathon. It's not a sprint. So take little steps and do one thing at a time and make it a new habit rather than focusing on the big, big, big goal. But I need to completely change everything.
Sure.
Do step by
So,
step.
what will be the first step that someone should take in order to start this journey?
The first step I always say is awareness. Actually, be aware there is a problem. Be aware that you want to change, that something is not working.
Okay. So you become
Because if
aware.
you don't know, yeah, you need to be aware. If you're not aware, you don't even know there's a problem.
Okay. Yeah. So then once you become aware, then you probably need to make a decision to change.
You need to
Yeah.
make a decision to to get some assistance because you can't do it alone. We all try to do it by ourselves, and that's what doesn't work. You need to get support. You need to find people like we're talking here. We're talking with like-minded people. We're talking
Yeah.
people who have similar experiences. And I always say, if you resonate, put up your hands. And it is amazing when you're in a room of people and you talk about things and people do have the heart and then the bravery to put up their hand, because quite often that's scary as well, but put up
Yeah.
the hand and say, yeah, I see you, and I resonate with you because I've gone through something similar. And you kind of go like, oh wow, I'm actually not alone. And you look around the room and everybody has their hand up. You're kind of like, wow, I thought I was the only one who had that problem, but no, I'm not, because quite often we don't talk about it. And that's why these conversations are so powerful, because we do need to talk about it. And
I
it's
think
something not to be ashamed of. And shame is that lowest frequency you can be in. It's the lowest energy, and you don't want to be in shame. You want to go to that love and joy.
yeah. Oh, look, I agree with you. So now there's these energy forms that I suppose take away your energy. These, shame, despair, anger, all of those things you're talking about. And then there's this love, the opposite, which is the love and the joy and the feeling good. And so, if somebody was to find themselves going into the downward spiral of shame or anger or despair or one of those lower energy forms, what's the best way for them to turn that around and start to allow the life force back into them?
I found it very, very helpful to actually write down things. So you don't need to journal. A lot of people say journal, journal, and sometimes people find that really overwhelming. But just have a piece of paper and a pen and write down how you feel right now. Can you actually describe how you feel? People quite often say, I'm busy. Well, busy is not a feeling. It's overwhelmed, it's feeling stressed, it's feeling what I said, angry or frustrated. So describe your feeling and then see why is it that you feel the anger? What is the reason you feel the anger? And sometimes you don't know, and that's fine as well. But just try to see on like a daily basis what is the trigger and why am I angry. Let's keep it by angry for the time being. Why I'm so angry? What just happened that I had that inner feel? I'm like, I'm really angry now. Is it something you said, and is it what you said or how you said it? Was it something you saw, something you heard on the news, whatever it might be? Just write it down. And you can do that with your negative feelings, but you can also do that with the positive feelings. So how would you like your day to be filled? What is, in an ideal world, what is your ideal day look like? What makes you happy? Where do you put your big smile on? And a lot of people don't know that either. And that's fine. That's, again, You need to learn how to do that, and you need to learn how to describe that. So if you had 24 hours and money, time, anything, nothing was an object. So what would you do? How would you fill your day? And
Probably
these are
not
the
the way
things
you're
that make,
feeling now.
that's when you make you smile, and that's the positive things rather than just focusing on the negative. And what we just said before as well, it's just, can you, a really really simple exercise is when you wake up in the morning, write down three things you're grateful for.
Yeah.
And people go like, "What am I grateful for? What is that kind of question? How big is that?" But it can be just like you were saying, it's pouring down rain, and the rain can be good because then the plants will get the water and the grass will grow and whatever. Or I can say the sun is shining and the flowers are up. So it's just little things. It doesn't need to be big things. So write down three things in the morning which you're grateful for, and then at the end of the day, in the evening before you go to bed, write down what was the best thing of the day. One thing, the best, simply the best. And again, it needs to be just simple. Don't overthink it. What was the best thing for the day? And just appreciate that as well. And that will put up a smile on your face again as well, because it is the best thing. And actually appreciate that, and celebrate that little step you put forward during that day. Because the next day you have another chance to do another step. And
So
then it
gratitude,
becomes the marathon you're starting, not the sprint you're burning yourself out in.
gratitude is just such a powerful thing to do. And when you are being grateful, as Sally likes to say, that's you saying thank you to the universe. But in the book by Joe, not Dispenza, Joe Vitale, he was talking about gratitude, and he was saying, when he was homeless and he didn't have any money and life just seemed so hard, and somebody said, you've got to find something to be grateful for. And he looked around and he looked at a pencil and said, okay, I'll be grateful for the pencil. What could I be grateful for the pencil? And the first thing he wrote down was, I can write a suicide note. And then he looked at the pencil and he saw that there's a rubber on the end of it. And he can be grateful for the rubber so he can rub out that suicide note and write something more positive. So, it's just really looking for the good in everything as well, and just being grateful for that. And I know that I have a practice of gratitude every night. I do look for people that and things. And I mean, all we have to do is have a look at the world we're living in. It's thanks to the efforts of so many people. You drive a nice car down the road. So many people made that road for you. So many people continue to keep that road in maintenance. And whatever car you've got, they've got this beautiful vehicle that will get you from A to B reliably. And you can just be so grateful for so many different things, and just find something to be grateful. And then once you've started that gratitude, then you can start the whole process of the journey.
And I think this just changing that negative, or what naturally all human beings go negative first. That's our first instinct. That's what we go to as our first instinct. But change that negative. Can you have three negative things during the day? Can you change that into a positive, even if it's just one thing?
Yeah.
And change that in your mind. Use different words instead of I cannot. Yes, I can and I will and I am. And change that what you can do and what you have
Yeah.
done. That
That's
already makes a very different change.
Look, when we go through the day, we got so many thoughts that are actually negative. 95% of our thoughts are negative, and it's really hard to catch all of them. And
Yeah.
there's been a few thoughts that negative thoughts that I've been going through, and it came to me how I can change those thoughts, because right now I'm disputing a charge from the government, and I've got the revenue services coming down on me, etc., etc. And instead of going down that spiral of I've got to get into a fight and all that, whenever that thought comes up, I can just sit around and say, well, I'm changing that thought into And then I'm just changing this thought into achieving my goal for this year. So I'm just changing the whole energy vibration around it. So just what you want rather than what are you going to fight or how's it going to drag you down.
Yeah, and I think it's also the meaning we give to certain words. It's like if you emphasize all the negative over and over and over again, you're gonna be negative. You're gonna get negativity. You're gonna get a negative result of whatever you want, because that's all you're focused on. But if you change the meaning of it and you actually give more emphasis and meaning to the positive, you will get more positivity in you. But it is the emphasis and the meaning we give certain words and certain actions and behaviors that you go like, oh gosh, you know, is that really what that means to me? And if it means so much to you and it's so important to you, well, then you better make sure it's a positive importance. Because if it's important, it should be not should be it will be a positive.
Yeah. But
Because otherwise,
also,
why if it's negative?
yeah. But also, going back to Joe Dispenza now, and I know you've done a bit of Joe Dispenza, and what he's talking about is that your mind is a chemical factory. It creates these chemicals, and you become very addicted to these chemicals. So when you've got a negative emotion, your mind in its neural pathways is creating all of this negativity. And because you're addicted to this, just like cocaine or sugar or whatever you want to call it, your mind starts to seek out more and more of those things. So the longer you go down into this negative spiral, the longer you're going to stay there and the harder it gets to get out of that negative spiral. So as soon as you can change that around, and again, if it's a joyful and a loving emotion that you can start to have, it's still a chemical and your body's going to be addicted to that chemical and it's going to start trying to find events that will, on the vibrational level, match with what's happening in your inner world.
Oh, absolutely. And that's what I think, you need to actually remove that and understand how you can remove all those negative emotions and those negative feelings so they don't reoccur again and they don't have that chemical reaction in your body, which creates disease and everything else. If you know how to control that, I'm not saying you will never be angry, I'm not saying you will never be sad. Of course, we will still be, but it's how can you then handle it? And I always see it as like the roller coaster. You're staying on this crazy roller coaster ride, which is like this and this and this, or are you kind of getting off and you're having a bit of an like the ocean and smaller little wave to ride rather than the big waves to ride and the big roller coaster to ride? And can you control it a little bit more? We can't always be happy 100% all the time. That's just not possible. But that's also not needed. But it is how can you not control, but actually be in control of your negative emotions? And when they occur, how can you change it to become positive? And how can you change something negative in a more positive way?
Yeah, and I think that that's the battle everybody has because your predominant thoughts is going to be your future. So you really want to try and make sure that your predominant thought is more positive to negative. You go like that. So you don't agree? Cool. Tell me more.
No, I was just thinking quite often we tap into our memories. Quite often when we triggered and we tapping into our negative emotions, it's quite often from the past. Because something happened in the past that's where you got the relevance to, because you remember it's a memory or it's something what happened before. And you either have learned from it and you react differently. You go like, oh well, that happened then, but now I'm older and wiser. That's the reason we have that expression. We're older and wiser now. Not everybody, but most of us. And you will react differently. But if you haven't dealt with that and you still have those, limited beliefs and those negative emotions, you will react the same way over and over. And that's when you get stuck because you're constantly in those negative emotions and you don't know how to handle that situation because you still haven't used the tools and the resources you have to overcome that. And that's when you get into a visual circle. And that is the red race we all in, and we want to get out of that, and you want to get off that roller coaster ride rather than to stay on. But how do you do that?
Absolutely.
And that's being able to control that in the best things, and also let go of things you can't control. We want to try to control so much, but there's certain things we really can't control, and letting go of that just feels so freeing, because why make something a problem when you can't solve it? Is it then really a problem, or just let it go and just move on?
It's funny you were talking about control. This is one of the areas that I'm working on in my life right now. Is or one of the new realizations in my life is, I think what happens to it's probably more men than women, because women tend to be more intuitive and more in the flow and more in the cycle, but men really try to control things. That they love to be in control, and normally it's from a um, uh, place of physical reality. And it comes back to that memory you were talking about. You're going back to your memories to figure out what worked and what didn't work, right? And but it's the past, and if you're trying to create something in the future with the past, you're not going to create anything in the future, because you just can't. You don't know how to do it. So what you have to do in order to create, you have to go into this unknown, or faith as they call it. And again, men hate the word faith, or not all men, but men like me hate the word faith because of the religious connotation to it. But
Yeah.
you take the religious connotation out to it, faith just means trust in the unknown. So if you're going to go and create something, you've got to be able to be willing to step out into the unknown and just trust that it's going to work out for you. And men find that very hard to do. More, I'm talking men. I don't want to be sexist, but I think men find it harder than women to do.
Yeah, I tend to agree with that. I think it's also, you know, you talked about trust, and I think the main thing to do is trust yourself. And we quite often don't trust ourselves, don't know how to trust ourselves. And we're afraid to trust ourselves, because what if we got it wrong, and we compare ourselves to others, and who can I trust, what can I trust, because there's so much fear being put out, and what is true. And that's when you go into the downward spiral, because it's like, well, you need to trust yourself. If it feels good for you, there's nothing right or wrong. You might disagree with me, that's fine, but if it feels good for me and it makes me happy, I'm going to do whatever I want to do. If you say, well, that's awful and I don't like that and it makes me feel really sad, that's fine, that's for you. Then it's not for you, no judgment, but that's fine. But why would I stop myself of something what I believe in, and I trust that that is right for me to do? And then you come back to that gut feel and being in alignment with your gut feel. Then trust yourself, and that's what you need to do. And not saying it might not be right for you, and you might trust your gut, and it might be perfectly fine for you as well. But trusting that in yourself, but you can only do that when you got the clarity, and you got that confidence to in yourself, that you know how to trust yourself. And that's quite often the hardest to get to, because we are insecure, and that's why we feel not good enough, and we're not good enough, and all those kind of emotions come up, and those limited beliefs that you go like, well, who says I'm not good enough, or I don't trust myself? It's quite often that monkey chatter in your head what says that to you. But is that really true? Again, and then you come back to trusting yourself. What can you really do? You can do anything, but you need to believe in it, and you need to trust yourself that that is the right decision you make for you.
Yeah,
Nobody else can do it
absolutely.
for you. You need to do it yourself.
Yeah, you're so right, and you covered so many really interesting points in that last few minutes that you were speaking. The first one, you saying you compare. You should never be comparing anyway. You should just comparing. As soon as you're comparing, you're in the downward spiral. That means you're not trusting in yourself. But the other thing is, and you're talking about you know memories or past memories. And most adults have the emotional intelligence of a 5-year-old because they keep living that experience from a 5-year-old over and over and over again. And then when you were talking about trust, why can't we just trust in ourselves? And again, that goes back to when you were a kid and your parents overrode you so many times, and you can't do this, you can't do that, and it's really hard as a parent. I know because I'm a parent, especially with my older boy. He's going through a period right now where he's becoming very hard to handle, which is fine. But it's like we're overriding them, but we've got to let them live their lives because they know what's best for them. And we've also got to trust that they know what's best for them as well. Although I don't know if laziness is best for a kid.
No, and I think what I've seen, and just coming back to women in this case, of course, you know that a bit more for men, I do it a little bit for women. It's a lot of mothers do the smothering, not the mothering, the smothering, and it's just getting the arms around the kids, and the kids can't see a thing, and they just want to do everything for them, and all from out of love because they love the kids so much, and they everything to them, and they are, but it's not always helping them to do everything for them, and they need to fall and hurt themselves in a gentle way, not saying you're always there to protect your children, but they need to experience certain things, and what you said, they need to learn how to trust themselves and to make the decision for themselves. And you need to let your children go in a good way. They'll always be your children, but can you let that smothering, and I don't know the fathering, how you say it with the father, but the smothering go at a certain time, and you can still be their mother and their father, but that relationship just changed, and it is just a different relationship you create with your children of trusting that they know what's best for them.
Look,
But
I
that's
know
a
what you,
completely different topic, but I just wanted to
but,
bring that in.
but I know what you mean because it's one of the constant battles I have with my wife is you're over protecting the children. You've been overprotective because you don't want to see your children in pain. But the way I see it is that a little pain now will help them later on in life. But if they don't learn those lessons now, later in life, that little pain will be magnetized so much more. And then we're going to end up in the process where you've got adults that have the emotional intelligence of a 5-year old because they keep reliving periods where they couldn't live before.
And I think then, cycles are repeating themselves. That's what your parents did, is that what you're doing then to your children. And you want to break that cycle, and you want to, if that's what you want, if you want to do exactly the same as your parents, you can do that as well. That's your decision to make. But, if you wanted to have your children more independent and trusting themselves, what is the energy you give off if you give that feeling and that energy from, oh, I'll do everything for you because I can't trust you, and you don't know what you're doing. You don't give that energy and that feeling to your child of like,
Yeah,
hey, you can trust yourself, I trust you. So it's that cycle that looks back because you don't trust yourself, you don't trust your children are not going to trust themselves.
exactly. And it's a hard one for parents, I'll tell you. It's very
Yeah,
hard because I know when I was my kid's age, I lived in South Africa up until I was 12. And I used to run around the block in South Africa when, you still had apartheid. And I used to run around the block. I used to light bushfires so I could put them out and things like that. We won't even let our kids walk to school anymore. It's such a different world.
oh, absolutely. I just wanted to just come back to one point we just discussed before we got on this stream. Um, how we talked about the energy flow and why it sometimes is not flowing. And I always say when I started my business, I was 25 years in luxury hospitality, general manager and COO, and run all those beautiful, very successful businesses for other people, not for myself. And when I started my entrepreneurship, I came to the blocks. I came to the wall again. I hit the wall and I was like, why is my business not working the way I wanted? Like, again, comparing myself to others. They were really successful, whatever success looked to them or to me, how I saw that. I'm like, why do I not have this? The why? I needed to understand why was I not there? And then I realized that I wasn't working. And I wasn't working as like doing the work on my business and doing all the to-do list and the things I'm supposed to do when you run a business. But I didn't do the work. And the work, I mean the inner work. So I had so many blocks and limited beliefs and disbelief and all the negative thoughts. Of course, my business was not going to go because I blocked myself from that energy flow going through me, going through my business, and going through all areas of my life. It affects your relationship. It affects your financial situation and your wealth creation. It affects your health, we just talked about diseases and pains and aches you get. So it affects everything. So if you don't work on yourself, nothing is going to work in your life. So to me, when I started doing real deep inner healing and deep inner work, is when things started to shift, and the energy started to shift, and the energy started to flow, and it flowed through any areas of my life,
Yeah.
and all areas of my life, and that is just something what I think a lot of people come to me with as well. They say, oh, my business doesn't work and I feel like a failure. And then it goes from one to the other to the other. And they all think they need a business coach, and they all think, oh, I need somebody who can do my marketing, and somebody who can do my sales, and somebody who can do my systems, and all very important. Absolutely. You need to have that all as well. But if you're just forcing it and you're not in flow, there's a beautiful book, Force versus Flow. It doesn't work. It can't, like the same as you can't be in your head and in your heart at the same time. You can't be in the force and in flow. If you're forcing things, it's with pressure and it doesn't work. You need to become in flow and in alignment, and that energy needs to flow. And what we said before, money is energy. So if we would like to have more money in our business and be successful in our business, and more money in our bank accounts, or however you want it, it doesn't need to be a bank account, but how do you create that then? Because it's the energy that needs to flow in.
Absolutely. And, I'm just going to summarize what you said. Okay. What you said is that if you want more money in your business, you've got to do the inner work, unblock it. And when you unblock it, now I'm going to start to paraphrase my understanding of what you said. When you start to unblock those mental blocks that you have around you, yes, you need to have a team around you that's going to help you build a successful business. Once you've unblocked those mental blocks, you will select the right people to be a part of your team. Is that what you were kind of like saying as well?
Absolutely. And I think sometimes people say, oh, you're so lucky, or people have all these great opportunities. Why do I not have them? And it's because you're blocking yourself to them. The minute you open to them, there's hundreds of opportunities flowing through you, because it's the flow, the energy flow is happening, and you meet the people you need to meet, and you're like, oh, that's a coincidence. Well, it's not. It's because you're open for it, because you have cleared those emotions, you've cleared the blocks, so you're flowing, and then that whole energy, you vibrate on a different level when that happens. And sometimes you go like, wow, how does that go? And some people say you're on cloud nine, you're just flying around, and that's what it feels like.
Yeah.
And you're open to it, and you're open with your heart, all those loving people will come. You don't attract negative people if you're a happy person. But if you're miserable and you're in that heavy energy of anger and shame and guilt and everything else, that's what you attract as well. So that's why we are all together, because we want that money flow, but we also want our flow in life, in all areas of our life. But you need to remove those blocks to let it go.
And I think what you're talking about when you're saying flow, all right, you're talking about your energy and your energy flow. And the energy that you put out is looking for something to attract back to it. So if it's a positive energy, you're going to attract back the right energy. I don't think you and I connected by accident. I think you and I attracted each other because we were on a similar waveform,
Yeah.
energetically.
And I think,
Yeah,
people say as well, I want more money in my bank account, but don't be afraid to spend either, because it's money flow. It needs to go. When I get a bill, well, I don't get as many bills anymore because everything is auto payments and electronic. But, if you get an invoice or a bill, pay it straight in, pay it straight out. I mean, just because you will get the money back in as well. But if you just hold on and wait for the deadline, and that's next month I need to pay and this and that and whatever, like my credit card, I pay the full amount.
yeah, me too.
If it's auto payment, the full amount. It's like it's always been like that. I've never done. I don't know why I got a credit card because I pay it off. But in one way, it's like you don't really need that. It's more a bit of a convenience because you do need to pay things with a credit card online. But other than that, it could have been just as easily be a debit card, so the money is there anyway.
Yeah.
So don't hesitate to pay as well, because it will flow back through to you.
And what's your view on charity, giving to charity? I know
I've done. Yeah, I've done a lot of charity work. Was raising money, and you were one of the very loyal givers as well for charity last
did
year.
I?
I haven't done anything this year, but it's only 4 days old. But we raised a lot of money for different causes, and I think that's the way of as well. And it's tax beneficial as well. You can actually do that as well. But it's what you're passionate about and where you can help people. And at the end of the day, that's my purpose, is helping others. And people say, oh, what is that purpose? That's too broad or not specific enough. But however I can help people. And if that's by charity or by giving back to community, giving back to people, if that's giving back time and wisdom, like we talk now, however that is, we all are charity, and we should all run a charity. And business is a business, but it's also a charity next to it, and I think that's so beneficial to give back in a different way than just money. It doesn't need to be money. It's just an exchange of energy, I say, and that's the barter system. That is, you can exchange services. I give you my service, you give your service. It doesn't need to be money. Energy can flow in many, many different ways, and if you give out and you receive with just as much gratitude.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, well, what I do myself is I joined Rotary, which is a community-based organisation that does do a lot of things in the community. It gives back to the community. So I tend to agree with you, and that's right. Now we're coming up to the end of the hour already. How quick time flies.
Well, that's a great energy flow, wasn't it?
As I said, I think you and I are able to have these discussions because we're on the same wavelength. In a lot of areas, we might not be on the same wavelength in every area, but that's when it's going to get juicy. but again, I do thank you for your time, and as you said, it's very important, it's very valuable to you, and you've got so much wisdom. So I do thank you. Before you go, is there anything else you want to say that you probably didn't say? Or you like let us?
No, I think it's just even what I said. It's the little steps what come to the big success. So be patient is another thing. But take those little steps, and if that's the three things you're grateful for, and write that down in the morning, and at night you write down what is the best thing. If that's what you took out from today, fantastic. That's already like 3 steps in the right direction. And I think just start. And sometimes it seems so simple, but if you consistently do this, it's not just one day you need to do it. You need to consistently do it to break the habits and to create a new habit. It takes 21 to 28 days to create a new habit. So start with that tomorrow morning, and then keep going with that.
Fantastic. And now, if anybody wants to get a hold of you, you're actually in the group, Facebook group, so they can hit you up
Yeah,
directly on Facebook.
Yeah.
If not, because this goes to YouTube as well, hit me up, and I can absolutely and joyfully and happily connect you with Nicolette. I think she's
Yeah.
got so much wisdom and
Any
so much.
questions, put it in the group or put it anywhere, and I'm happy to have a chat in the group or one-on-one. If you have any questions or anything like that, happy to help where I can.
Great. Well, thank you so much for your time.
Fantastic. Thanks, Paul. Have a lovely evening. See you
You too.
soon.
Well, see you. Bye.
Bye.
Close.